Hey, this is Uriah Kennedy with God and Country. We wanted to do some quick posts during the week outside of our normal podcast, so that's what we're going to start doing here. Today is Memorial Day. I hope everybody's having a great Memorial Day and remembering those who have gone before us, because like it says in our promo, freedom is not free. A price has been paid, and we need to reflect on that and appreciate that. I think that's what is wrong with current society is we've lost the appreciation. We've lost the value that has been brought to this country and the things that those people have fought for that have gone before us. And if we don't start learning that appreciation, that gratitude, this whole work, this whole society that we call the United States of America is going to be for naught. Today on True Social, President Trump posted something we'd like to cover here a little bit, and I'd like to kind of discuss what's going on with current immigration and the left. Trump says, "Happy Memorial Day to all, including the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical left minds who allowed 21 million, and we obviously know there's a lot more than that in this country, 21 million people to illegally enter our country, many of them being criminals and the mentally insane, through an open border that only an incompetent president would approve, and through judges who are on a mission to keep murderers, drug dealers, rapists, gang members, and released prisoners from all over the world in our country so that they can rob, murder, and rape again, all protected by these U.S.-hating judges who suffer from an ideology that is sick and very dangerous for our country." And that's exactly what's going on. The left is pushing so hard to have illegal immigration happen. And we saw in the last 4 years, 21 million people come into this country. And we have to ask ourselves, what's the purpose of that? Why did the left let so many people into this country? And we all know, or at least hopefully we know, that the only goal, and if you really don't think this, you got to change your mindset. The only goal of the left is to have power, money, and influence. That is it. They don't care about you and your families. They don't care about any of their own supporters and their families. It's a tool. They think that they know better than we do. They want the power, they want the money, they want the influence. And outside of that, there's no other cause. There isn't any. And you think that they have some kind of heart for those immigrants that have come across the border, and they're opening up their hearts to these poor people. That is false. That is a lie. We've discussed many times in this podcast that you got to look past the narrative and find out what is the real goal. The narrative is, oh, these poor people, we need to reach our hearts out to them. We need to reach a hand out to these people. We need to help these poor people in these other countries so they can come across the border. And then they twist to make good things look evil and evil things look good, and make us on the right look like we're the heartless people. We're the people that are taking downtrodden people and pushing them even farther down. They want to twist that narrative and make us look bad. And it is a false narrative. You got to look past that. Then you look at instances like this that just happened in New Jersey. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with this, and we want to kind of look at this one more time here. So look at this clip really quick.
This was outside the Laney Hall, that privately run facility. It was contracted by a private company to house undocumented migrants pending deportation. And you remember, at that very scene were 3 Democratic members of Congress from New Jersey and the Mayor of Newark, Ross Baraka, who happens to be also running to be New Jersey's next governor. So you see there the melee that this caused as these members of Congress and the Mayor of Newark were trying to gain access to the facility. Well,
why would the left go to such efforts like this? I mean, we all look at this and we think this is a losing cause, right? Why are they trying to prevent Tren de Agua and MS-13 gang members from being kicked out of this country? They're known criminals. They have records. There's actual or court orders to have them taken out of the country. Why is the left fighting so hard to have these people stay in our country? It's demeaning. They're losing their base because of it. They're losing their popularity because of it. What is the end goal behind this? Why the fight? Why would you go to someplace like this and fight so hard for it? And again, you got to look past that narrative that they're pushing out there in the media. There's a lot of commentators out there talking about this. You see Sean Hannity talking about it. You see Glenn Beck talking about it. You see even Sean Ryan talking about it a little bit. What is the end goal? And I don't think any of them are really kind of hitting the nail on the head as to what is the end goal. We look at what Trump is doing and we applaud his negotiating skills. I mean, the art of the deal, right? If he wants to negotiate with something with Canada, he comes out and says, well, why don't you become the 51st state? And he starts from this high level and he negotiates down. He wants to negotiate with Greenland. Well, why don't you become part of the U.S.? He throws out these huge, big old pointers and then brings things down to something reasonable. And every single time he does, the left kind of freaks out. And what are you doing? And we all on the right are saying, well, it's the art of the deal. He's coming in from a position of power and then negotiating to what he wants. If you look past the left narrative on immigration, you're going to find the exact same thing. And very, very few people are recognizing it for what it is. Their art of the deal, where they're coming in from, again, the left only wants one thing, right? They want to stay in power. They want money, they want influence. That is it. The path to that goal is immigrants. They know for a fact that they're losing popularity, and it's not just the fact that they're losing popularity, but even in those days when they were fairly popular and it was a pretty close race, they don't want close races anymore. They want a sure thing. They want to have permanent power forever. They don't want to see another Republican take office. They want to see the right lose permanently. That is their goal. So if you look at that, how do we obtain a goal to where we maintain power ongoing now forever? Because only with maintaining that type of power can we affect the changes that we really want, which is socialism, essentially. It's the government takes all power, we maintain you, and that's their end goal. You look at what they've done with the black community, right? They've made the black community victims. They've put them in a place of poverty because they make that community dependent on the government. And they're trying to do that with the Latin community and many others. Because only when you're dependent on them do you need them. Whereas on the right, we have the silent majority, right? And we're kind of off on our own. We kind of maintain ourselves. We don't have any kind of real standout goals or anything like that we put out there publicly. I mean, those of us who are just citizens, we just kind of sit back and you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. I just want to go out fishing on the weekends. I want to be out with my family. I want to be able to go and work. I just want to be left alone. I don't want government intruding anywhere on my life. And they have the opposite mentality. They want to make people more dependent on the government because that's where they get their power. Again, it is not about their heart. They don't care about you. They don't care about the black community. They don't care about the Latin community. I promise you, they do not care. And they come out with these narratives, making it look like that they care, that it's important to them, that we on the right are heartless. Look past the facade. Because that's all it is. It's a fake, lie facade. That's all it is. They want the power, they want the influence, they want the money. And going back to immigration, the only way they can permanently have those things is through more voters. So the last 4 years where they had an open border policy, it was on purpose. As much as they would deny that, says no, we were down there trying to control the border as well as trying to be humanitarian as well. No, that's a false narrative. It is a lie. Their goal from the beginning has been to import as many voters as possible and then give them a legal path to citizenship. That is, amnesty has been their goal from day one. From day one. And we saw that when DOJ discovered that 4 or 5 million immigrants had come across and had just been granted work visas and driver's licenses within 4 or 5 months of coming across the border. And then DOJ went through and looked to see if they were on the voter registry, and they were. A lot of them were not only registered to vote, but had voted. That is what the left wants. So looking at this and seeing that their end goal is only power and influence, their only goal is to import a permanent voter base. What's going on with these type of protests? Going back to my original point. Why are they pushing so hard to have criminals and gang members stay in this country? And I go back to the art of the deal. This is their line in the sand. This is the point that most people are not making. And that point is, if they do not draw a line here with the gang members, with the criminals, where is the line going to be drawn? Their mentality, their hope is by the time Trump deports all the gang members, all the Tren de Agua people, that they will have put up enough of a fuss. They will have put up enough of a bad image of a story, a heartstring story that pulls at all our heartstrings and makes the ICE and Trump and the right look so bad that the majority of the population just starts frowning upon it and says, you need to stop. You need to stop deporting people. That's the goal. So if you look at it from their point of view, let's say that they didn't put up any fuss with the gang members and stuff like that. And they says, well, they're kind of right. Let's deport all the gang members. Let's get rid of them. And then they chose to put up their fuss at the next stage. And we know Trump is going to get to the next stage. He's gonna move past the gang members, the criminals, and all that kind of stuff, deporting them, and he's going to start deporting people. It's going to happen. There's no way that this country can sustain 40, 50 million illegal immigrants. We already had 20, 30 million illegal immigrants before Biden. And now we've got another 20, 21 million that came across the border. It's unsustainable. So at some point, Trump will get to the next stage. He will. It's going to happen. They're going to get to the next stage. The left knows that. If they didn't start the fuss, if they didn't start the rhetoric, if they didn't start this type of protestation until then, they would lose a lot of that voter base, because way negotiation works, you start high and you negotiate to the middle, right? The art of the deal. You start by accusing Canada that they're going to become the 51st state, and you negotiate down to where they're actually maintaining their own border. They're keeping the drugs out. They're keeping the illegal immigrants out on their own, right? It's the art of the deal. The left is using the same tactics, and we're not recognizing that. They're drawing that line in the sand with the gang members, with the Tren de Agua, with the MS-13 gang members, so that by the time the next level comes, which we all know, there'll be such heartache, there'll be such distress about it, there'll be such a bad taste in everybody's mouth about the deportations that the general public will stop it and just say, Trump, you've gone too far. That's what the left wants to see happen. They want to see the general population say, Trump, you're going too far. And they will have won. They will have accomplished exactly what they want to accomplish. So again, if they didn't start deportation fiasco until that next level, they'd probably lose most of the next level in negotiating. But if they take a bad position now, protesting against the gang members and the criminals, by the time they get to that next level, the deportations will stop, and they'll have exactly what they want. And then once they have the deportation stopped, the automatic next step is going to be, okay, these people need a path to citizenship. It's going to be the amnesty conversation all over again. Believe me when I say that that is where this is going. And many people will say, no, it's not going to go there. That's exactly where this is going. That's the entire goal behind this. They're willing to look bad now to achieve their goal later. Why? Because if they achieve their goal later, it won't matter how bad they look right now. Why? Because they will have their voter base, the imported voter base that is now getting Medicaid, food stamps, everything taken care of for them. They will have a dependent voter base dependent on them that will vote them into office every single time. Every single time. They did that with the black community 50 years ago. The black community was a great community, independent, doing things on their own after the 60s and Martin Luther King and all that. And then the left saw what was happening, that they were revolting against the left. I mean, the left is the source of the KKK. They're the source of, well, they're the opponents to the civil rights movements, huge opponents of that. And they had to flip that. They had to reverse that. And how they did it is make that population dependent on the government. That's the way it's always been. They create a problem, and then they never solve the problem. They don't want to solve the problem. They're not going to solve the problem. Because if they solved the problem, then you wouldn't need them. You wouldn't need them in office. So they create a problem subvert-ably, and then they always promise to solve the problem, blaming the problem on the right, blaming the problem on everybody else, and then that's how they stay in power. And that's all they want. Again, they don't care about you. They don't care about your family. They don't care about these immigrants. They don't care about their families. They could die coming across that border for all they care. They could starve to death. They could get raped. They could get murdered. They don't care about the U.S. citizens. You could suffer from the crimes that are coming across the border. You could get raped and murdered and have tremendous violence in your communities. They don't care about you. They don't. They care about one thing. That is power, influence, and money. That is it. How do I stay in power? How do I have influence? And how do I make a fortune off of this? And we all know that they're all making a fortune off of it. That's proven. Proven that they all work in the stock market in their subtle ways to make millions while in office. But it's not good enough if they get out of power every so many years at every election. They're concerned about the right winning. Their goal is permanent power. Something that is so solid that they can count on it, just like they can count on California and New York voting left every single election without a problem. They can count on it. Doesn't matter what they do, how egregious the acts that the left does, California, New York, and others will always vote left. They've won those societies. They've won those states. It's a done deal. They want the rest of the country to be a California and a New York, guaranteeing them office every single election. Until at some point, they're going to start changing the government up, move it towards socialism, move it to where the federal government has more and more power. More and more rights are taken from us as a population and given to them as the government. And they can't do that if the right keeps meddling with their goals. So how do you get the right out? You import your voter base and you make them dependent on the government. So you have to draw the line somewhere, because Trump is going to deport a lot of them. I mean, what Trump is doing right now is scaring them. It's freaking them out, because all the work they've put into this is going to be for naught if Trump gets his way, if we as the right get our way. So they have to put a stop to it. But they know that if they wait too long to put a stop to it, they're going to lose anyway. So how do you not wait too long? How do you put a stop to it now? You get out and you start protesting against the gang members, the violent criminals, and you start creating a fuss. You start creating a racket. You start putting a bad taste in everybody's mouth. You start making it look bad, like we're taking innocent mothers and we're deporting U.S. citizens, and we're taking all these non-criminals and deporting them with the criminals. And you make all that look bad and egregious and violent and abusive. And then the false narrative, the lie, wins the news cycle. And then we as the general public, even those who are strong Republicans, start saying to Trump, you've gone too far. You've gone too far. You need to stop. We need to figure something else out. And they've won. They've done exactly what they did. They started low and they negotiated to the middle, and they used Trump's tactics against him. I think a lot of commentators that are out there are not grasping exactly what's happening. They don't care about their current image. They care about future power. They're playing the long game. And we on the right are not. We're not playing the long game. We're playing the 4-year game. That's the only game the Republicans have ever played, because we're afraid we're going to be out of power in the next 4 years or even 2 years. Whereas the left, they constantly play the long game. That's why getting rid of the deep state is so important, because the deep state, those heavily entrenched government employees, know that they can stonewall, they can sit back and do nothing and just wait out the current presidency. They've done it a dozen times before. They'll just do it again. They don't like the current policies. They don't like the current initiatives. We'll just sit back and stonewall and just wait for this president to get out. We'll outlive him. Congress knows that. They've been in office for 30, 40 years. They've been through a half a dozen presidents. We'll just outwait them. We'll stonewall and stonewall and stonewall and just outwait them until we can put our policies back into place. And the deep state stays in power, essentially, as a deep state, as employees of the government. They still have their network in place. It's all intact. And that's what they want. I hope we as the right realize what the end goal is. We can't let them win. We can't let them win the narrative. We've got to get the word out to those people who start looking at this narrative and start frowning upon it. The second you start seeing conservative friends, family, whoever, where their opinion starts to change, where the narrative, the left's narrative starts to sink in, starts to take over, and they start having a bad taste in their mouth about what Trump is doing right now, you've got to help reverse that and say, don't listen to the narrative. Don't listen to the publicity. It's all a lie. They wanted imported voters, and they wanted a path to citizenship for all these illegals. They wanted them to have amnesty. They want them all dependent and on the government with food stamps and housing and all these other things given to them, because it's about keeping them in power. We have to see that, or else they're going to win, and we'll never win another election ever again. Ever. Trump will be the last great president, and we'll be done. We'll have more of these daily kind of current events type posts that we're going to start doing 3-4 times a week. So please listen to our podcasts. They're great podcasts. We're really trying to grow our channel. So please subscribe. We want to get to our first 1,000 subscribers. So hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our first 1,000 subscribers. We're going to be putting out great videos like this. I appreciate you guys being on board with me, and we'll talk to you next time.